Good morning, Sunnyvale. Good morning, Sunnyvale. Audio is working. That's always good. I'll get started in just a moment. Good morning. Looking for comments. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Sunnyvale. Happy Friday. Welcome to my weekly virtual office hours. This week's early artwork is from actually the county offices on Heading, where I had a meeting earlier this week, and I thought it was actually perfect for African American History Month. A great mural of Muhammad Ali. So actually very interesting. Love the colors. But let's go ahead and get started. Good morning. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thank you for joining me again this week. It happens to be the end of February, but a very rainy end of February. This is the 153rd installment of my weekly office hours. Hopefully everyone is doing well, staying healthy this week. We've now reached 1,075 days since the March 16, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. It was 3 years ago, I converted my weekly in-person coffee shop office hours into this weekly live stream address. And except for a week of surgery, I haven't missed a week since. People still say they appreciate, hearing from their mayor each week, whether or not they're watching it live or watching it video delayed. These weekly addresses are really good because they allow me to reach a lot more people, and then my general in-person office hours. They allow me to provide you some updates, tell you some of the upcoming events that we have and answer some of your questions and just give you some general words of encouragement. So thanks for, allowing me to continue to represent you and work for Sunnyvale. Most Fridays, just like today, I follow up this live stream address with in-person meetings at Being Seen on Murphy Avenue. So if you'd ever like to reserve 15 minutes or 30-minute time slot, just email me, council@larryklein.com. And, we can figure out a time that will work best for you and talk about whatever you want to talk about. Let me get rid of my background. Let's see before we move on. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about what's happened at the federal, state, county, and city level over the last 2 weeks. So last Tuesday, of course, was Valentine's Day. So hopefully you celebrated with someone you love. Thanks for everyone who sent me a Valentine's Day card. So I had some very interesting ones. I'll actually be posting those in the next day or so. And then last Tuesday morning, Senator Feinstein announced that she would not be seeking re-election in 2024. Senator Feinstein has been, a fixture of California politics for decades, elected to the Senate in 1992. And she holds the title of the longest serving female U.S. senator. But we've already had several people saying that they will be running for a seat in 2024. Of course, the big question is whether or not she will retire before 2024 and have Governor Newsom appoint a replacement. So, lots of questions as far as what's going on with that over the next year. And then last Tuesday evening, council met. Yeah, we even meet on Valentine's Day and multiple holidays throughout the year. But we had several things on the agenda. Council approved a zoning amendment request for Block 20. And so that's several properties along Matilda, just south of Olive. And ultimately, council approved increasing the square footage for housing and office space along that stretch of Matilda. And we talked about this last month. Staff had found that there was a noticing problem with the project. And so council had another public outreach meeting or another public meeting to kind of talk about what to be approved after going through that appropriate outreach. So that was what council did that evening. And then last Thursday, council had our study issue and budget workshop. So this is the second of our all-day meetings. So our first meeting is a strategic session in January, and then our second all-day meeting is a study issue and budget proposal workshop. And so, and then of course our third is the budget workshop in May, but that'll be coming up in a few months. And then we ranked about 40 study issues. So some of the top ranked issues that the council listed as number one was first, evaluate funding a full-time position to address homeless concerns in the city of Sunnyvale. So having a point of contact for the unhoused issues, working with several of the service agencies. So I think that was a positive study issue. We also ranked number one, eliminating the use of chemical pesticides on city-owned property. So these are kind of split by department. So each department, has a certain number of study issues. Some only one, some actually had no study issues, but it was going through and ranking by department what our number one issue is, because, it's really the resources of that department and maybe consultants outside and, the additional cost to actually do the implementation or the study. But, that was chemical pesticides. We looked at assessments of needs for additional outdoor sports programs and facilities. This is, several of these have been there for a few years, but this is looking at what our general needs are on all of our parks, what additional activities residents would like. And I've heard, more pickleball courts, more, a Frisbee golf training course, so there's lots of things that people might want to have in the community as our community keeps changing, as the interests of our residents keep changing. Another study issue was assess Sunnyvale, assess the Access Sunnyvale customer relationship management system to include Access Sunnyvale design for mobile apps. So right now, Access Sunnyvale is all web-based and you can run it on your phone. And I end up opening up probably an issue or two a week as I'm out for my morning runs. But making conceivably a better mobile app that would be better used to raise Access Sunnyvale features, and whether or not there's other things that should or could be added to that. And then last was to evaluate the range of options for shuttle service or alternative transportation options for Fremont and Homestead High School students who live in North Sunnyvale. And that whether or not, that's not completely the city's responsibility. Ultimately, it's the school district working with VTA. Ultimately, that study issue would take about 2 years, and I'm working in multiple ways to get us in front of VTA, get ultimately, a better communication between Fremont Union High School District and VTA. It's what we can do in the short term to actually improve the quality of life for those students. And there's been lots of discussions from within the community on whether or not the school district or the high school district should ultimately recreate or reopen ultimately Sunnyvale High School, which closed in 1981. And so, and after Fremont High School closed, the school district ran buses for several years, but now they rely on VTA to basically bring those high school students to class every day and take them home every night. And there's questions about full buses and late buses, and also, those students not being able to do after school events because buses aren't running late enough. So lots of issues there, and starting discussions with those groups to see what we can do from at least coordinating the two interests, those two stakeholders, along with the parents, to figure out the best thing that we can do. And we also approved, several budget proposal additions, so that will be coming back to us in that May proposal. Last weekend, of course, the library had an expected internet outage, so they had planned for that, and they, kind of went back to some of their old ways, not having a working computer system. But things are back and functional now. So if you go by the library, everything's good. Monday, of course, was President's Day, so city offices were closed. I hope everyone had a good long weekend. As far as this week has been a little bit quiet. I've had lots of meetings, but not a lot of events happening from a city standpoint. We've had a very windy week, and of course now the rains have returned. So hope everyone is doing well, staying warm. We had a good number of branches blown down and a few trees that were uprooted. So hopefully now that the ground's saturated, we won't have as bad of winds that we've had earlier this week. Yesterday afternoon, there was a village rhythm drumming event at the library, and actually that was ultimately canceled. They're looking to reschedule this. So that was canceled yesterday morning. So sorry for those who attended. I actually went by also and didn't find out till I got there. And then as far as today, of course, marks the 1-year anniversary of the beginning of the war in Ukraine. President Biden had a surprise visit to Kyiv earlier this week. And actually today, President Biden announced further funding for Ukraine and Moldova. And Moldova has some energy issues. It's a relatively, basically it's right there bordering Russia and Ukraine also, but having energy issues, and the president also announced new sanctions on certain Russian and Chinese companies. So lots going, not that much going on this week, kind of quiet, but it's nice to have a little bit slower week now and then, especially after the number of meetings the council had in January and so far this February. So let's go ahead and get to our weekly COVID numbers. COVID numbers across the nation continue to trend downwards. From a national standpoint, we've now had over 103 million cases, up up a little from last week, but not that much. We've had 268 million people that have had at least one shot. That's about 81% of our population. And as far as deaths, we continue to have deaths, but it's continuing to trend downward, only about just over 2,000 in the last week. So about 1,115,000 deaths related to COVID. And then from a California standpoint, we seem to have stabilized. We've had 11,100,000 positive cases. We're still at an average of about 2,900 cases a day. So that's up from a few weeks ago where we're at 2,400 cases a day. But we've kind of stabilized that as far as positivity, still about 6.5% over the last 8 weeks. We finally, California just passed, and I'm surprised it didn't make bigger news, 100,000 deaths related to COVID. So we had about 250 deaths in the last week, but we just passed that 100,000 mark of people passing away with COVID. And then as far as the county, the county continues to do well. Our cumulative case count is now over 474,000, up about 1,200, about 1,200 in the last week. We've had additional 4 deaths, so 2,668 deaths related to COVID, and more than 95% of our residents are fully vaccinated, and more than 70% have received the booster for those that are eligible for it. I continue to do lots of time advocating on our city's behalf. At the county level, regular discussions with county health and the county supervisors. The county is closing down all the testing and vaccination sites, but you can still go to secfreetest.org or secfreevax.org to find out final information. The state of emergency for California ends on the 28th. So this is, March brings a brand new world from a California standpoint. The state has said that the Governor Newsom announced that back in October, I think November, that the state of emergency would end on on February 28th. That of course means that we're still doing hybrid meetings, but our boards and commissions will have to come back in person. The commissioners and some of the staff will be back in person starting the beginning of March. So all of our March meetings will have an in-person component, where it was previously a lot of those meetings were only remote. So something to think about. As far as upcoming events, next Saturday, March 3rd, there'll be a Holly event at Peterson Middle School. And so that's, I think, from 10 to 1. I'll be publicizing it later this week, but happy that the same group that did the Diwali event for the last 2 falls will be having a Holly event coming up. So anyway, I'll have more information about that later next week. And then on March 19th and 20th, the Friends of the Library will have their book sale weekend. So that happens every about 2 months. And then as far as upcoming council meeting, our next meeting is next Tuesday, February 28th, but that'll be just interviewing applicants for our boards and commissions. We're always taking applications year round as far as our boards and commissions are concerned. So if you're ever interested in getting more active in the city, I definitely consider going to the city website and searching for boards and commissions. And then in March, our first meeting will be on March 14th, and we'll have a study session on the housing element. So kind of updating, our response to the state's review of our housing element that we submitted last year. We'll be declaring March as Women's History Month, and of course it's also Red Cross Month. And then we'll also appoint our new representatives to our boards and commissions. So after we go through the interview process next week, we'll actually do the appointments coming in that first meeting in March. And then March 21st, 2 things, one of which is we'll be, ultimately doing the update or kind of so after giving kind of feedback during our study session on the 14th, we'll actually be approving our next submittal for our housing element. And then the other big thing for the March 21st meeting is we'll be selecting the preferred alignment for Stevens Creek Trail. So that's the Sunnyvale portion from Remington to Fremont. And so been looking forward to that coming forward to council for many years now. I was back on the Forest City Stevens Creek Trail outreach back in 2012, and happy to see that that's finally moving forward. So good, happy that that's coming in front of council. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. If you have a question, just add it to the comment and I'll try to get to it. Robbie asks, where do I report down trees? So for down trees in Sunnyvale, before 4 p.m., you can go to 408-730-7506. And after 4 p.m., you can go to 408-730-7180. That's our non-emergency line. Same thing as down power lines. If you see down power lines, 408-730-7180. Remember, never approach a down line, but definitely report anything that you see of that nature. Derek asked, hi, Larry, thank you for your posts. A city street tree fell last night and crushed my car. It was parked on the street. The city came last night to clear what they could, but will be back to finish up today. Who do I contact at the city about this? So sorry to hear about the problem. With the heavy rains, saturated ground, and wind, there are lots of issues. Every city in the area has been having those issues. But if you need to do a claim, you can always search for claims on the city website to declare a claim for damage to your car. Julie commented, I love the art that you posted. Where can I learn more about the art in the city? So I posted about that earlier this week. You can always, so the city has several, about 150 pieces of art in the public right of way. And that's one of the things that the city has done for years is all the retail, all the office space, all the commercial buildings that are out there, and also the public facilities, that a percentage of construction costs also has to go towards art. And one of the things so the city has a webpage. If you search for art on our city webpage, you can see they have several predefined art walks. I think there's 5 predefined art walks, but there's basically a map of all the art throughout the city that you can go and visit, and kind of create your own walking map of different art pieces. So, it's like I was highlighting this past week, the new Atari homage, I'll call it, the spaceship landing on Borregas. I think it's 1265 Borregas, right at one of the new Google mass timber buildings. So it was actually interesting to see, to say the least. But I'm slowly kind of going around the city, and I've been doing that during COVID, running with my dog and highlighting, different art pieces that we have around the city. But you can always do your own art tour. Take a look at the city website and you can find that. Robert commented, the city needs to start servicing the trees around Sunnyvale. We call for the trees to be trimmed on North Eden and South Eden, and nothing has been done. So the city has a schedule to trim all the trees every 7 years. When residents report issues, the arborist goes out and checks the trees to see if they need immediate trimming, and we'll do it if there's definitely immediate problems. But definitely all the trees in the city basically have a cycle of every 7 years they get trimmed. Now, during COVID, council actually reduced the tree trimming to reduce expenses because we didn't know, as opposed to cutting back staff, it was making sure that we reduce some of our services. But one of the budget proposals that will come back as part of our budget workshop will be to increase the tree trimming over the next 2 years to catch up with that 7-year cycle. So happy that we'll start getting back on that cycle. But if there are issues, definitely report them. Often we hear from from residents, and sometimes the trees do need to be trimmed immediately, and sometimes after the arborist looks at them, it's like, it's wait a while longer. But some of the issues that we're seeing right now are just saturated ground and really heavy winds. Maribel asked, I was wondering if there's something that you can do so that people who want to enjoy our parks can do so. Muwekma Park parking lot is being used by people that are not at the park. My guess is construction workers. Please help. So yes, I contacted staff, and actually staff investigated and went back and reminded the construction company that the parking for the park, especially Muwekma Park, is for residents. And actually no construction parking signs went up last week. So happy that, we'll finally, residents get parking for that site and can basically, better utilize Muwekma Park. Definitely there's lots of construction still going on there. So that'll be happening for a while, but it's usually subcontractors coming in and not knowing what the rules are and just looking for the closest parking spot. So happy to see that, staff communicated to the construction company, as well as, making sure that signs went up. Robert asked last week, what are your thoughts on social media? So, I see, social media as a necessary evil, especially for electeds. I try to focus mainly on the positive and what's happening good in the community, point out, where you can get information, what's happening, upcoming events. But, I think especially during COVID, social media, this live stream address has been beneficial for residents, beneficial for me to get, that my voice out there, that being that calm voice in the storm of COVID, has been allowed me to reach a lot more people. A lot more people now know who their mayor is and appreciate, what I've done for the community and what the community's done as far as, coming together to help out, those in need during COVID and during other crises. So, for me, it's good to get the information out. That being said, social media sometimes is an echo chamber, and often people focus on or are in groups that kind of uplift their general their general attitude, and sometimes that can be negative also. So it's a necessary evil in my life. I post, especially after getting on council, I post a lot more than I ever did before. But people seem to generally appreciate it and, continue to try to keep that positive message out there as far as that's concerned. David commented, I always hated the no crossing signs along Sunnyvale Avenue between Washington and Evelyn. I'm glad to see that they've been taken down. So yeah, that was one of the bills that the governor signed last year that removed the jaywalking, the concept of jaywalking, that basically, people can cross mid-block. Of course, it still needs to be safe. You can't jump into traffic, but the police departments can't give you a ticket for jaywalking. Now, of course, and so that was one of the things that reaching out with staff, that taking down those mid-block signs didn't make sense because people were parking at the Carroll and Evelyn parking lot and kind of cutting through mid-block to get to Murphy Avenue. So happy that those signs are down, and please, be careful. If you're ever jaywalking, looking for a crosswalk is important, but it is no longer illegal to jaywalk in the state of California. Cynthia asked, I saw big sign boards on Murphy Avenue in downtown Sunnyvale. What is this announcing? So council last month decided that, or earlier this first meeting of this month, I think it was, council decided its intention to convert the 100 South Avenue, 100 block of South Murphy Avenue to a pedestrian zone. And so the meeting on May 16th is to finalize converting it into that pedestrian mall. There's the pedestrian mall law of 1960 that we actually have to follow certain outreach meetings, certain, from a legal standpoint, following the appropriate procedure. And that's our next meeting. So definitely people have another chance to make their voices known, but I've only heard mainly positive feedback as far as that's concerned. Jennifer asked, when is the new city hall going to open? So staff will be moving in mid-March, and we will be having a ribbon cutting in early April. More information to come soon. Let's see, are there any comments or questions? Yes, Steven said, yes, more pickleball. It's super popular and oversubscribed. Yeah, I've heard that from multiple residents. So looking at what we can do as far as adding pickleball courts and, are there other opportunities within the city from a programming standpoint? So, that's one of the things that our library staff is working on. Let's go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for joining me again this week. We still live in uncertain times, and, new issues come up almost every day. But I want you all to know that no matter what challenges we face them together. I'm proud of Sunnyvale and how our residents have responded to the challenges over the last few years. I'm thankful to everyone who helps out in our community, showing, their generosity, their kindness. Your actions and your attitude really do make a difference. For me, it's like, I know that Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. We're in this together, and we will get through this together. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay dry. Take care. Goodbye.